Assalamu alaikum ji. A warm welcome to today's policy dialogue, Water Woes, Tackling Pakistan's Urban Water Management Challenges. We are honored to organize this event in collaboration with the WWF Pakistan and International Growth Center Pakistan. I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to both these organizations for the support and collaboration in addressing one of the most pressing issues confronting Pakistan today. I am Shahid, and I'll be moderating today's session. By profession, I'm a water management expert, having experience in the hydroclimatic modeling and climate-resilient water resource management. The urgency of Pakistan's water management challenges cannot be overstated. Pakistan's urban centers are increasingly vulnerable to climate-induced disasters. Erratic monsoon patterns, aging water infrastructure, and inadequate urban planning have left our cities prone to severe flooding and water scarcity at the same time. As we witnessed this year and the past few years, urban flooding turned many of our streets into rivers, severely disrupting lives and livelihoods. Without immediate interventions, the compounding effect of climate change will not only intensify these challenges, straining our water resources and threatening the well-being of millions. The time for action is now. Lucky for us, we are now starting a dialogue on water management, which hopefully will bring together a collection of ideas and solutions. I'm sure we are all eager to hear the experts' perspective on the key questions surrounding policy, barriers, infrastructure gaps, urban flooding, and innovative solutions. So without further delay, let's begin the discussion. So we have with us on a panel Mr. Suhail Naqvi, Dr. Fazilda, Mr. Fakhir, and Dr. Azim. Mr. Suhail is a director of freshwater practices at WWF Pakistan. With over 18 years of experience in the water and environment, an environmental engineer with an MSc from South Korea, he has led projects funded by EU, OSAID, ADB, and other international donors, contributing to the research with organizations like World Bank and CISRO. Welcome, sir. Then we have Dr. Fazilda Nabil. She's expert in climate and water governance, having experience of over 15 years of policy experience in the development sector. Dr. Nabil is an advisor for the Government of Pakistan and United Nations Living Indus Initiative for ecological restoration of the Indus Basin in Pakistan. She's also teaching courses on the business cases for climate action as a visiting faculty at the LUMS University. She completed her PhD in the development studies from the University of Sussex. Welcome, ma'am. Then we have Mr. Fakhir Razai with us. He's a water resource engineer specialist with approximately 20 years of experience, holding a BSc from the Faisalabad and MSc from the University of Stuttgart. He has worked as a production engineer, research assistant, and water resource expert. Currently, he serves as the regional director at Pakistan Council for Research in Water Resources, leading a team in the water resource research. Welcome, sir. And finally, we have Dr. Azim Ali Shah. Dr. Shah is the chief of party of USAID Water Management for Enhanced Productivity Project and as an international researcher at IMI Pakistan. With over 19 years of experience, his research focused on the transboundary climate-smart agriculture, solar-based irrigation system, and improving water governance in South and Central Asia. Welcome, sir. So with this, I will start our panel discussion. So my first question from Suhail Saab. Considering the vulnerabilities of urban water infrastructure in Pakistan to climate-induced disasters such as floods and heat waves, what evidence-based strategies can be employed to decrease the vulnerability of human population to these challenges?
Thank you very much, Dr. Shahid. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, again, on behalf of my organization, WWF, I am thankful to all the esteemed attendees as well as the organizers as well. So this is right now a time where we all are affected by climate change, directly or indirectly. And a country like Pakistan, whenever there is a climate change, it's a water change. Either it's in the form of the flooding, droughts, heat waves, weather shifting, etc. So everyone's life is affected by the climate change. So if we talk about the water, so water is life, and Pakistan being an agrarian country, our economy revolves around the the water. And everybody knows, or there's a lot of literature, and all esteemed researchers are here. They'll also be discussing about the effect of the water in other areas. But particularly if we talk about the urban areas, this is one of the major upcoming crises, or in fact, that crisis has unfortunately arrived, and it has been ignorant in the recent past. Like the climate change is affecting on our urban areas. There are several examples, like in Karachi. First, there was a heat wave a couple of years back, and then now it has expanded to the other parts of the countries, particularly into the urban cities. Now, coming back to the human beings and their vulnerability, how to counter that? Yes, our urban population is affected directly with these extreme events. Hydrological studies have mentioned right now, and in the coming future, the frequency of the rainfall is increasing, like the intensity and the frequency, or like the duration of the rainfall. Like extreme events, rainfall duration will be reduced. We have witnessed that if we start seeing the floods since 1976, 92, 2000, 2010, 22, and now there is a high expectation from the experts before 23, God forbid, we have to again face another super flood. How it is affecting directly with the human life, you know better, like our economy, our areas. And if we talk about the urban flooding, there is a direct link with the rainfall. 2 weeks back, Lahore experienced 330 millimeter of the rainfall, like different parts of the city, which is quite high. Like the total, if we see the total rainfall quantity is 720 to 740 millimeter on annual basis. And if we are observing these kinds of extreme or super rainfall events, we don't have capacity to absorb that. And if we link it with our past interventions, we claim, unfortunately, to be industrialized or urbanized, but we are not actually. We are damaging our biodiversity, our ecology. Constructing carpet roads, there isn't enough space for the green spaces who absorb the water, and that water moves, contribute into our aquifer. So this is one of the major challenges. If we talk about the urban flooding challenges, if we talk about the groundwater depletion, or the water management challenges, this is directly linked with our communities, and communities are unfortunately becoming vulnerable. Now, coming back to the interventions, we shouldn't move or look always towards the government or the private sector. It is not only a single person or a single state or single organization problem. This is a big crisis which can be handled by a collaborative approach, like the government, private sector, civil society organization, and private investors. They all should come together, and then they can tackle that. And we can't construct a dam in the urbanized communities to store that, but we need to come up with the innovative nature-based solution ideas, how to capture the water in our green spaces, how to provide a safe pathway to the water to flow and store, contribute into our aquifer, how we can treat the gray or the wastewater by the nature-based solution, and take it back into our circularity. So these are the strategies that should be part of our communities planning, instead of having unplanned population or unplanned urbanization, which will be, always taking us at the risk and alarming situation we can face in the coming future. So we need to have a proper strategy to cater that, and to incorporate these kinds of the interventions into part of our coming policies and strategies.
Thank you, Suhail sir. I think. Sorry. So a couple of days back, like a couple of weeks back, Lahore experienced approximately around 330 millimeters of rainfall, and some of the reports says that it's around 260, but let's take it as a 300 millimeter. The total annual rainfall of the Lahore on an average is 650 to 660 millimeter. So if I take it correctly, if, for example, we have a 300 millimeter of rainfall in one day, it means that for the entire whole period, we have received half of the rainfall. Do you think that only nature is responsible for this or not? Or the human beings are also equally important and they are also contributing towards these changes?
Thank you, Doctor. Very interesting question, because this is something that kind of the similar questions are at several international forums for Pakistanis experts, like why Pakistan? So if we see towards the, like, Pakistan is actually blessed with a lot of national or natural resources. Like, we do have the world's highest mountainous region, because after K2 there are a series of the mountains which are having the height more than 5,000 meters. So a small tweak or a small change in the temperature directly affects, and it causes, the temperature change, as well as, causes the different kinds of the weather patterns changes. Similarly, if we see, we do have deserts, we do have the delta. So these, if we talk about the natural resources, a minute change directly affects us. And you can see the examples of the Gulf or the hill torrents, etc. Towards the human intervention, yes, because humans have unfortunately intervened into the nature. So if we play with nature, nature plays with us in the form of different disasters. So there are different scientific evidences which are available, which are also telling, like, our weather is partially, if not all, we are responsible for that, about the carbon emissions, about the other things. So we really need to think broadly, and then coming to the focused points, like what should be our responsibility to cater these kinds of the challenges.
Thank you very much. So my next question from Dr. Fazilda. Uh, Dr. Fazilda, as Naqvi Saab said, like for instance, we have developed our urban areas into, if I'm not wrong, as in urban jungles, right? So everywhere pavement is there. So that ultimately had an impact on the groundwater. So my question from you, that what are the global best practices regarding the green technologies and nature-based solutions to address the urban flooding, and what have been the challenges in Pakistan so far?
So essentially, I just want to start off by saying that about 38-40% of Pakistan's population lives in the cities, and they contribute to about more than half of the GDP. Given this, and given the rapidly, given that Pakistan is one of the most rapidly urbanizing cities in South Asia, urban flooding is of, prime importance to take care of, both in terms of its economic impact, as well as, the impact of the population. The fact that our cities are expanding in a very inequitable manner has a lot of implications for climate justice, water justice, and the fact that marginalized communities are bear the brunt of many of the ills of urban flooding really sets the context for doing something about it. Now, with regards to nature-based solutions, very quickly, nature-based solutions are, the term is really nebulous, but it involves working with nature rather than against it. So it involves solutions such as urban forests. It involves solutions such as green roofs, rainwater harvesting mechanisms, stormwater parks, spun cities, and I'll go into these in turn. For instance, when you talk about urban forests, for example, urban forests not only bring down urban temperatures, but they foster urban wildlife. They're great for absorption of flood water, and and Pakistan has experimented with these, the Clifton Urban Forest in Karachi, the Miyawaki Forest, which is a part of that 10 billion tree tsunami program in Lahore. There's also the Cantonment Board plantation drive. So there are these pockets where these solutions are being implemented. Apart from urban forests, other countries have really gone ahead and utilized the true potential of nature-based solutions. So, for instance, in China, in Hebei city in China, they have something called the Spawn City model, where really even the roads in that model city, even the roads have been built out of porous asphalt. So when the rainwater comes, it trickles and then trickles down. And ends up recharging the aquifer underneath. Similarly, in another sort of city in North China, Harbin, they've dedicated about 34 hectares of land for what they call a stormwater park. Now, stormwater park is essentially an urban flooding. I mean, it's more than an urban flooding solution, just an urban flooding solution, but it's a nature-based solution which not only takes in excess water, but it is also going to provide it'll have a mini artificial wetland constructed as a part of it. Also going to provide water filtration services, groundwater recharge services. In addition, there are many countries around the world that are now using artificial wetlands. So wetlands essentially are again a concept that's not very well understood. But wetlands essentially, if you think of forests as nature's lungs, wetlands you can think of as the nature's kidneys. So wetlands can have the potential of filtering up to 60% of the heavy metals in waters in wastewater. They can filter nitrogen, phosphates. A wetland also for urban flooding specifically, 1 acre of an area that is dedicated to a wetland can hold up to 1.5 million gallons of flood water. So that's really the beauty and the potential that you're looking at when you think about nature-based solutions. So an acre worth of wetland holding 1.5 million gallons of water. That's and so the potential is huge. So these Pakistan, and we can come to that as well. We've started. My friends from WWF, Sohaib is here. They've been pioneers of some of the testing out of nature-based solutions. Our colleagues from PCRWR are probably going to talk about the artificial wetland that they've set up at their premises in Islamabad. We've started to test these solutions out, but there are many challenges, and I think I'd like to break down the challenges. Coming to the second part of your question, I'd like to break down the challenges into perhaps two. One is the policy architecture, right? So internationally, yes, nature-based solutions have been, proposed. It has been proposed that they can supply up to 37% of the mitigation needed for the Paris Agreement to materialize until 2030 worldwide. So internationally, about half of the NDCs, the nationally determined contributions that countries submit, about half of them have NBS inbuilt into them. Pakistan's nationally determined contribution, the 2021 one, there's one being updated as we speak. But the latest that we have, 2021, also has NBS. In terms of the national policy architecture, you have your climate change policy 2021. Nature-based solutions has been mentioned. You have the nationally determined contributions. Nature-based solutions has not only been mentioned, but also their key programs like the 10 billion tree tsunami, the protected area initiative, Recharge Pakistan, that our colleagues at WWF have been undertaking, the provincial policies. So all of your provincial climate change policies, we were recently, I was asked to attend the consultation at the CM office for the Punjab climate change policy. So nature-based solutions are really featuring everywhere, from the global to the national to the provincial policy architecture. That bit is there. The implementation, we all know, is the tricky tricky part. The second sort of, and the fact that these policies operate in silos. The second sort of part where I feel that nature-based solutions are challenged, and the implementation, the upscaling, really taking them at scale to build climate resilience, that is, hampered, is the part where climate finance comes in, right? The testing of nature-based solutions in Pakistan is still in its nascent stages. WWF has done some testing under the Water Resource Accountability Program, a gabion wall here, a community pond there, an artificial constructed wetland, in another place. But really, the long time frame of these solutions is problematic in terms of monetizing the financial return on them. Why I say financial return? Because of the constraint of bringing in climate finance, bringing in private investment, also the specificity and the low replicability. They're very context specific. So a solution that works in DG Khan may not work in in Jhalmaksi. So they're very context specific, and hence it is difficult to take them to scale. And of course, the commercial returns. We're still figuring out how to. We're still figuring out how to, for instance, come up with the cost benefit calculations, M&E, etc., etc. I'll end with some figures on climate finance, just to put that in perspective. The domestic contribution, of the domestic private sector contribution to climate related projects in Pakistan is about 5% in the country. In India, it is 51%, right? In countries like Nigeria is around, I think, roughly around 10%. But the international private finance is around 26%, right? So climate finance is a key sort of hurdle and a key constraint in really, giving Pakistan and giving organizations like WWF, like IMI, like PCRWR, the opportunity to scale up these solutions, and to to be able to go beyond building uh, you know uh, 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 climate resilience for the one community, and really be able to say that these solutions are building climate resilience for this entire agroecological zone, right? So that's sort of scaling up. Maybe I need to switch it off for you.
Graveyard of policies, right? कोई भी काम होता है हम पॉलिसीज बना देते हैं, उसकी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन होती है नहीं होती, दैट्स अ सेपरेट क्वेश्चन, बट वी हैव अ लॉट ऑफ पॉलिसीज, राइट? आपने भी जिक्र किया नेशनल क्लाइमेट चेंज पॉलिसी थी, पहली पॉलिसी बनी 2012 के अंदर, उसको अपडेट किया गया 2021-22 के अंदर अपडेट किया गया। आफ्टर द 18th अमेंडमेंट प्रोविंसेस ने अपनी अपनी पॉलिसीज बनाई हैं। जैसे मैं कल देख रहा था, पंजाब की क्लाइमेट एक्शन पॉलिसी आई है, क्लाइमेट चेंज पॉलिसी नहीं है, 2022 के अंदर आई है। बलोचिस्तान ने भी 2022 में बनाई है, उसको अपडेट 23 के अंदर किया गया है, केपी ने 22 में बनाई है, सिंध ने 22 के अंदर बनाई है। बट व्हेन यू लुक टू दीज पॉलिसीज, वहां पे कोई चेंज नजर नहीं आता। आपने कहा ना कि वन शू कांट बी फिट टू एवरीवन, वो चेंज नजर नहीं आ रही। तो एक तो पॉलिसी गैप से मैं आई विल कम बैक टू यू लेटर ऑन, बट बिफोर गोइंग टू आस्क दिस क्वेश्चन, आई विल आस्क फाखिर साहब से एक क्वेश्चन है मेरे सर, एज ए रिप्रेजेंटेटिव ऑफ PCRWR, could you elaborate on the government's current intervention in the water management and discuss how the integration of advanced technologies could further enhance these efforts to address the growing water challenges in the Pakistan?
Arranging this knowledgeful event, I think it will be very helpful to have this discussion right at middle of this monsoon season because it has focused on this urban climate and urban water management issues. Regarding your question, it's very relevant that PCRWR being government organization, we focus on research to produce advanced technologies and to test the other available technologies around the world and how they fit in our environment. So, as you mentioned that what government has to do actually. A government makes policy, which you have rightly mentioned that we have a lot of policies and graveyard of policies हम इसे कह सकते हैं because of having so many policies. But government can only do that, to have policies and then try to implement to make a conducive environment that the private sector and other stakeholders and developers can come in and they take their own role and then take this to further level. What actually happens? So if I focus to if I deviate from your question a little bit, what happens in urban water management issues in these challenges? If we see this cycle that we take water from environment, either from surface water or from groundwater, and then we use it efficiently, and then we return it back to the environment in shape of wastewater disposal. So how we do this all cycle, how this human intervention is taking this all cycle. So for example, if we are talking about groundwater, because in urban centers we heavily depend on groundwater for our drinking purpose and for our industrial use as well. If we keep that rural side little bit aside now, because we know that a lot of our water sources are going into irrigation, but focusing on urban centers, we heavily depend for I mean almost 100% of our drinking water is coming from groundwater, and then industry heavily depends almost 90% of industry taking groundwater extraction for its use. So how we are doing this extraction, the first component of the cycle, how we are taking from environment. So if we are taking from the environment, like we are taking from city center of Lahore, everyone I think in this hall is aware of that depression cone, which is going to happen in, I mean, what Vasa is doing, that they are drilling now up to 700 feet to get their tube wells installed. And there are some studies mentioning that if we go some 200 feet more, and then there will be rock and no water available after that. So either we are taking it sustainably, first component. So I have put that Lahore city example there. And then how we are utilizing this. We all know that where the 90% of water goes, how they are using it, how efficient they are in their use. But in urban centers, how we are dealing with our precious resource. I mean, we cannot renew. Every day we have sun, we can have solar, and next day if we miss to have little bit vitamin D, we can have the next day. But this resource is not renewable. We have to use it efficiently. So the second component of using, what we see in our domestic use, that we are washing our cars and we are washing our garages with the tap water. So we are getting just pipe plugged in our tap, and then we are washing our. So second component, I just want to make little foundation that how this cycle is actually, which has been actually disturbed. So this is what how our domestic use is. Then the third component, that what we are doing after when we are returning to the environment back. So we can see when we travel with our canal road, we can see that wastewater coming into our fresh bodies, and this is not a one example. We can see in other cities and other areas of the country as well. So if this cycle is disturbed, then which you have earlier mentioned, that how human activities are making this cycle disturbed. So all these things contribute to each other, and then we have to face the challenges what we are facing today. And then we have this climate change issue, so another layer. And then we are facing these extreme events. Half of our annual rainfall getting just few hours. How to manage that? Then our unplanned urbanization. We don't care that either it was agricultural land where we are constructing concrete roads and buildings. So if there is if we, I mean, we are making something which is not being absorbed by the nature. So we are playing with the nature, rightly said by Sohail Saab, that then nature will play with us as well. So this is what happening. Now, what PCRWR is doing after all this foundation, that we are working on all of these aspects completely on urban, and which I have kept aside this agriculture and rural. So we work on this water management, water quality. So because we know that if quantity is there but water quality is not acceptable, that is also another challenge. And for this water quality, what we are, for example, what we are paying, like irrigation department, they are charging 1 rupee for 60,000 liters. I have gone through one study and they have made these calculations that we are paying for 60,000 liters 1 rupee. And for this bottled water, we are paying 50 rupees for half a liter, more than 50, I think, today. So this is what the price difference is. And quality comes with some price and with some cost. So we work on all these aspects of water resources, and thankfully to our seniors, because this organization was founded back in 1960s. So it has covered a lot of topics which we are discussing right now, right starting from water quality, water management, rainwater harvesting, giving back to environment these nature-based solution, recharge wells. We have worked heavily on these prototypes in last 3-4 years, and we are happy that at least there is some development organization, because we are just whistleblowers, the researchers. We can only make some technologies tests and how it will work, and what the scientific results we are getting. So we can do that. Then the role comes where the development organization has to take up these interventions. And so luckily in last couple of years we have worked with IGC Pakistan as well for groundwater recharge in capital development with Capital Development Authority and in Islamabad. And there we have installed more than 100 of these recharge wells. And the people around that vicinities, they are now really shouting out about these gains in aquifer, what they have experienced in this time. So these all things which we are working in PCRWR, that are few things. I think I will stop here. Thank you.
और जिस तरह अभी सुहेल साहब बता रहे थे कि जो रेनफॉल हुई थी 300 मिलीमीटर और रफली, सो उस एक इवेंट के अंदर इमी पाकिस्तान में जो रिचार्ज वेल के अंदर वाटर रिचार्ज हुआ ग्राउंड वाटर के अंदर, दैट वाज 72,000 लीटर. सो ये एक बहुत बड़ा इनिशिएटिव है कि अगर इस किस्म के इनिशिएटिव्स फॉर एग्जांपल हम किसी भी अर्बन एरियाज़ के अंदर हम करते हैं, सो ना सिर्फ हम अर्बन फ्लड्स को मिटिगेट कर सकते हैं, बट वी कैन रिचार्ज दी वी कैन इम्प्रूव द ग्राउंड वाटर टेबल एज वेल. सो फ़ाखर साहब, वेरी क्विक आंसर सर मुझे इस पर चाहिए होगा. आपने बात की जी कि मैं थोड़ा सा इसको नेक्स्ट लेवल पे लेके जाता हूँ कि हमारा लेवल ऑफ लेविशनेस ये है कि हम टैप वाटर के साथ अपनी गाड़ियाँ धोते हैं. ठीक है, ये हमारा लेवल ऑफ लेविशनेस है. मैं कहता हूँ कि क्या कोई बंदा इस हॉल में ऐसा है कि जो नेस्ले की 2 बॉटल्स वाटर 19 लीटर वाली ले उसके साथ वो गाड़ी धो? कभी भी नहीं धोएगा वो. रीज़न बीइंग वहाँ पे वो प्राइस पे कर रहा है उसकी 500 रुपीज़ या 600 रुपीज़ पर बॉटल को उसकी पे कर रहा है. सो व्हाट इज़ द हिंड्रेंस? वो प्रॉब्लम क्या है सर कि हम अपने जो प्रीशियस वाटर रिसोर्स जिसको कहा जाता है, हम उसको क्यों इस तरह ज़ाया कर रहे हैं? आया क्या हम उसकी प्राइसिंग मैकेनिज्म कोई नहीं की जा सकती? अगर की जा सकती है तो वो हिंड्रेंसेस क्या है उसके अंदर जो उसको करने नहीं दे रही?
Sir, I think this question was more relevant last year because at that time PID had little less Abhyana. But this year they have increased a little bit. So there are some, I think, political to make these costs up to at least market level.
Right.
But at least somebody has started thinking about these issues and coming up with some solution. Just to mention that these bottled water companies, they are paying now for aquifer exploitation.
Okay.
I think 1 rupee per liter, whatever. I mean, that can be increased, but somewhere it has to start.
Yes.
So it has already started for bottled water companies. And then we at PCRWR, we are mandated to check their water quality, and then we convey to the authorities, because we are just a research organization. We convey these results, water quality results, to concerned authorities who are mandated to take actions on not complying the standards. Number three, there is a judicial water commission. I think it's working in all provinces, but because I have worked with the Punjab Water Commission, Judicial Water Commission, they work on environment and water, both sectors. They have taken some initiative, and over last year in 2022, I think 2021, we were there in Lahore High Court, and Justice in Court of Justice Shahid Karim, who is the judge in this case. We presented this recharge well technology to the court as well.
Okay.
And he was, I think, impressed, and he ordered to some government department working in Punjab government to install these in their public parks. So at least that we have similar thing in Lahore as well. So it happened back in 2021, I think, and somehow they are now started somewhere that they are lowering their parks and making some dungi grounds.
Yes.
At least
Yes.
something has started.
Exactly.
So the hindrances, I think, they are moving a little
Towards the solution.
pushed away. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So my next question is from Dr. Azim Saab. Azim Saab, क्वेश्चन पे जाने से पहले मेरे जहन में एक और बात आई, जिस तरह अभी फाखिर साहब बता रहे थे रिचार्ज वेल के हवाले से, और बीइंग योर एक्सपीरियंस एज ए चीफ ऑफ पार्टी ऑफ USAID, so my question is, how important is a multi-stakeholder approach in managing water resources, and what lessons can be drawn from the USAID projects in Pakistan to improve collaboration between the different sectors in the water management?
Thank you, Ji. Shahid, thank you very much. I have diligently noted points of all the speakers so that I don't repeat anything. But what is stemming from the discussion up till now is one, water is still considered as a free commodity, and we need to have a change in the mindset in terms of valuing water, whether this is for irrigation, for potable use, for industrial use. Pricing is one issue. The sensitivity, around this issue in the larger sort of public domain is not there. There have been a lot of other studies as well. I remember from IWMI's platform, we conducted a study a few years ago, and the cost of collection of the irrigation fees, which is called Abhyana, was more than the actual Abhyana for the whole province of KP. So, I mean, you're collecting more money, you're collecting less money and spending more money in terms of, trying to collect that money. Does that make any sense? So the issue is, when I sort of sum up all of these points, is about the governance of the resource, which is water. And we are not able to separate this governance issue from the day-to-day management related outcomes. When I say governance of water, I talk about the resource as about the resource outcomes. And I remember we published a paper on that as well a couple of years ago, where we said that, it's not about setting objectives, it is all about management. where you set objectives, you try to sort of firefight, there's water, there's flood, there's heat wave. So the temporary solutions are not the solutions to improve water governance. You have to create a space where you involve all the stakeholders. Now I'm coming towards your question. The importance of the stakeholders in terms of, setting the objectives. What do you really want to achieve? Whether it's in the sort of urban water issues, in the irrigation agriculture issues, or any other issues. Uh, the stakeholder involvement is necessary because these water related issues are not domain of one single department. So this is where the policies do not work actually. When we talk about that, there's climate change policy, there's obviously a water act, there is environment policy, forest have their own policies. So in terms of their implementation, a multi-stakeholder approach really comes in, whereby you basically involve all the relevant stakeholders in order to sort of come up with the action plans or the frameworks through which those policies are to be implemented. So that's the real catch where the involvement of stakeholders become important. And not only the government departments, from USAID's perspective, I can obviously sort of clearly say the real stakeholders are the real people who we are to, let's say, provide the service from the government side. Their involvement is also equally important in order to frame any action plans. I just give you, for example, that we went to Peshawar and we wanted to sort of bring this recharge well idea there as well. And you've been part of those discussions. So recharge well, initially we started discussing with irrigation department because any of the water related intervention often lands at their desk, and they are somehow the custodians of implementing the water acts as well, in Punjab as well, in KP and other provinces as well. But we couldn't see much sort of inclination for them to really sort of enter into the domestic water or the urban water domain. Then, we discussed with the agriculture department. Ultimately, we realized that there are water supply and sanitation companies that have been created across KP. Around 6 of those are functional. So we talked to them as well. Then they said, it's a very important issue. We have to deal. We have learned that from PCRWR supports in Islamabad, they have created, CDA has around 100 wells or recharge wells. So let's just do it. So another bottleneck came in that, where to install that work. If it's a public place, then you have to involve the district administration. So we applied a NOC for district administration that, there is a place we have surveyed, we did all the hydrology, everything. That NOC was not issued. Uh, then we had to use our influence through multiple channels to get the NOC for a different place. So the NOC was finally issued. So if you sum up that, in order to just install one recharge well, we had to sort of consult like 5 or 6 stakeholders. Ultimately, with all their cooperation, now we are moving forward to, let's say, first install one recharge well as a public sort of place. It's a ground, and then trying to replicate that over the whole province. So if you basically want to really frame effective policies, at that level you got to have all these stakeholders discussing the solutions, and then providing their input how they would basically be implementing those issues. uh, we have had huge successes directly working with farmers. We work with agriculture department. The things take, let's say, months to really materialize. You go directly to the farmer, which is individual capacity building of the farmer. I've always differentiated in my work that you have to be very clear whether you want to build institutional capacity or individual capacity. The problem we have is in terms of the capacity building, majority of the interventions from donors, from the development organization, end up being building capacity of certain individuals who then move on, and then the institutional lacks those capacities really to deliver afterwards. And the whole focus, what we have been sort of advocating and trying to implement through our projects is, we pick up those issues where we see there is a systematic approach to build certain tools, technologies, systems within the institutions, and train people in order to run those. And if they are able to, let's say, bring a change which is an institutional level change, then it is sustainable. Otherwise, you end up, investing a lot, not getting the results. But at the private sector level, working with the farmers, for instance, we have huge successes whereby, for instance, I give you example of the Dera Ismail Khan region. It has not been a perennial irrigation type system there. It was a road cohe system, hill torrents, water used to come, people used to flood their fields, which is called spate irrigation. And then they used to only have one crop in Rabi, which is wheat. With USAID investment, they built the Gomazam Dam, which is the third largest dam in Pakistan. Majority of the people do not know that we have a dam, Gomazam Dam, which is the third largest dam. It is there. So a whole perennial irrigation system has been sort of constructed there. Now, what we saw was after the water courses were built, people were taking the sort of precast channels which were laid there out and diverting the water towards their field, again using the same mentality that you have to flood the field, wait for the winter, the crop would automatically grow, and then you would cultivate. So we spent like 5-6 years there, and from that mentality, now what we have tried to sort of institutionalize, at least at the farmer institution level, is you have to prepare your fields in raised beds. And why we brought raised bed technique there was in 2022 flood, majority of the crop was all sort of devastated because of the ponding of water. And the only fields where we saw this raised bed techniques applied, there the water drained. And farmers were lucky to save their crop. So a very small technique, it saves water, it helps you, irrigate efficiently, and then, you improve on the productivity as well. But working directly with the farmers, once they saw the benefits in 2022, now, this is spreading like anything in the whole DA Khan command area. Similarly, we introduced them with the drip irrigation techniques, tunnel farming, because it's a very sort of dry and during the non-monsoon periods, the heat element is there. So simple tunnel farming at a small scale level have really helped to boost the productivity of, for instance, vegetables there. It's a issue which you have to identify. At the scale of the issue matters a lot. At which scale do you really want to intervene? If you want to bring in better management or better urban management, for that matter, in metropolitan cities like Lahore, Karachi, so the people that you need to talk, the stakeholders that you have identified, they are different. And if you want to really, let's say, install one well or one scheme with the rainwater harvesting techniques, that is not going to bring in the real benefits. That has to be at the scale of the whole city in a terms of the better planning, and then with the all relevant stakeholders on board, then you can imagine or you can think that in the next, let's say, 5 years, you would see tangible outcomes. The biggest worry we have in these cities is the declining water table. And declining water table is not going only to sort of impact at the household level, but it's going to impact at each and every level. The industry would suffer, the environment would suffer, the potable water supplies would be affected. And Fakir, clearly sort of gave you a hint that 200 feet is the margin that we are playing with. And if it has to bring back to the levels, in Lahore, it used to be around 70, 80 feet, I remember. We installed the first observation well in IWMI's premises, and we found the water at 70 feet. And the same observation well got dried, and now we again reinstalled, and it's more than 150 feet, I guess. So double the water table has declined in the last only like 6 to 8 years. So this is really, really worrisome. So here the nature-based solution, all these techniques come in handy in order to restore our aquifer, particularly in the metropolitan cities.
किया जाता है। मेरा ख्याल है जब भी हम कम्युनिटी के पास जाते हैं बात करने के लिए, किसी चीज़ के हवाले से हम डिस्कशन करते हैं, तो कम्युनिटी कहते हैं जी गवर्नमेंट करेगी, ठीक है। सो एवरीथिंग इज़ लाइक दे पुट द बॉल इन द गवर्नमेंट्स केस कि जी गवर्नमेंट करेगी। व्हाट डू यू थिंक, व्हाट इज़ द रोल ऑफ कम्युनिटी, या हम क्या कर सकते हैं कि हम कम्युनिटी को इंगेज करें, क्योंकि हमारा अल्टीमेटली गोल इन द डेवलपमेंट सेक्टर के अंदर कम्युनिटी को बेनिफिट करना होता है। सो क्या किया जा सकता है सर इस केस के अंदर?
जी, थैंक यू वेरी मच। आपका क्वेश्चन एक तो ये कि I wanted to respond जो पहले आपने questions किए
Sir,
कुछ मेरे
please.
पास examples हैं which is connected with the communities. I do agree, esteemed speakers, और बड़ा अच्छा they covered the point. Dr. Fazilda mentioned about the water pricing, and Dr. Fakhr mentioned about the nature-based solution, recharge well, and etc. So from the community's perspective, one of the most foremost important thing is the awareness, which is a very vague word, I would say. Everybody loves in every project community awareness, capacity building, etc., etc. But believe me, this is compulsion. आपने बात की कि बॉटल्ड वाटर के साथ किसी ने गाड़ी धोई देखी है. आई कैन गिव यू एग्जांपल्स नॉट विद द वाटर बॉटल बट विद द फिल्ट्रेशन प्लांट्स वाटर. Like we installed back in 2015 in Lahore, some of the vulnerable communities, we installed the water filtration plants, RO, reverse osmosis, or ultra filtration system with a very state of art कि जी ये bottled water को के मुकाबले में है, but for the communities free of cost. नेक्स्ट टाइम व्हेन वी विजिटेड वी सॉ कि जी लोग वहाँ पे देगें धो रहे हैं उसी वाटर से. एंड माई कोलीग हु वाज देयर हु जस्ट कॉल्ड, यार ये क्या कर रहे हो भाई, इट इज़ वेरी प्रीशियस वाटर. कहते जी आप देगें की बात करें, कल एक बंदे ने मोटरसाइकिल यहाँ पे धोई है हम सारे ने. सो दिस इज ऑन द लाइटर मोड, बट दिस इज द डिलेमा, द पब्लिक परसेप्शन, द अवेयरनेस रेजिंग, विच इज वाई दैट इज important, because that water which is free of cost we don't want to take, we don't want to accept as a human psyche. कि अल्लाह ताला ने अगर जन्नत फ्री में रखी होती तो शायद, टू बी वेरी ऑनेस्ट, सॉरी टू से, कुरान पाक में हैं एग्जांपल्स के किस तरह से बनी इसराइल पे मनो सलवा आता था तो फिर बाद उन्होंने दे डिनाइड कि नहीं जी हम उकता गए हैं. सो दिस इज द रियलिटी. नाउ what is happening, like now nature is actually, they are shaking us, वो हमें झंझोड़ रहे हैं अभी. water table is going down, water quality is affected. आप ये देखिए from the one or from the past 2 decades, कोई भी आउटब्रेक अनफॉर्चुनेटली पाकिस्तान में फैलती है वो लाहौर से फैलती है. डेंगू सबसे पहले यहाँ से आया. कोविड आपका जब आया, एपिसेंटर somehow was spread from Lahore, although के other regions भी थे. But this is the dilemma. Smoke हमारा अपना बाय प्रोडक्ट है, 5th season है. What is the reason? Because we are using, being an urbanized communities, we are exploiting our resources, unfortunately. मैं आपको example देता हूँ. In 2015, WWF Pakistan conducted a study on the situation analysis of water resources. कि जी water resources, water balance क्या लाहौर का, कितना पानी आ रहा है in or out, simple engineered formula. And we were surprised to see कि most of the water which is used in the slum areas, जो कि unaccounted है. We counted the water from the posh areas. The percentage was 150 liter of the water per capita per day usage. Slum areas में 300 plus थी, more than 2 times, which was shocking. और वो unaccounted water है, किसी को नहीं पता कितना पानी यूज हो रहा है, unplanned settlements हैं. So we need to come up with the solutions, but first we need the data कि communities जो हैं they should be registered, they should be in the plan, they should be in the urban strategy. One thing. Now coming back to the second part of the question, okay, what the solutions should be, because we don't need state of art systems. We have been working with the different international institutions, because what is a very small community. ये हम panelists बैठे हैं, we know I think more than 10 years each other on the water domain, what's the research, what is going on into that area. And it's not a rocket science. Like if we talk about the nature-based solution, recharge well is there, which is the artificial injection by the treatment, and thanks to the Judicial Water and Environment Commission, they provided us a supporting arm, जिसकी वजह से इसको हम replicate कर रहे हैं in Lahore, PCR, WR, irrigation, environment departments, WWF. So this is something in which we are actually multiplying that solution. We got some results. Yes, then the question comes in, जो Dr. Fazilda mentioned, कि जी हम इसको expand नहीं कर सकते. This is again another question. Similarly, there are other solutions. One thing we talked about the quantity, but about the quality. If today a heavy rainfall happens, हमारे जितने नाले हैं वो सारे उबलना शुरू हो जाएंगे. Carrying the domestic sewage, industrial effluent mixed with the at least fresh water, it is mixed. Green water is mixed with the grey water or the black water. एक हो जाएगा, which is going downstream, और वो सारा wastage है. So we need to come up with a strategy how to cater that. We also started work among the communities like Lahore की urbanized or peri-urban areas में. Okay, because in our Lahore's master plan, wastewater treatment plant land is allocated since 1990s. Babu Sabu pe jaएं, 7,200 canals or 900 something acre is allocated. But unfortunately, we don't have any combined effluent treatment system. Why? Resources, etc., technology issues, energy crisis, etc. We need to come up with the simplified solutions. So, WWF, being a science-based organization, we actually take directions from the government institutions, research institutions, and multiply that. Recharge well, as Fakir Saab ne bataya, this is the solution. WWF tried to multiply that. Similarly, NIBG, another government entity, they introduced the floating treatment wetland, sewage water, wastewater. Even we tested on the industrial effluents. 80% रिमूवल एफिशिएंसी है अमंग द कम्युनिटीज़. हमारे कम्युनिटीज़ के अंदर जो हमारे पेरी अर्बन सेटलमेंट्स हैं, जोहड़ बने होते हैं ना, जिसको हम छप्पड़ बोलते हैं. सो दे एग्जिस्ट देयर, बट द वाटर विच क्रिएट्स waterborne outbreaks, disease, ultimately that water is used somewhere for the irrigation purpose. We did that in collaboration with the NIBG, with collaboration some of the other institutions. The water is 80% treated in terms of the BOD and then used for agriculture purposes. So this is something we don't need some heavy activated sludge process machinery or the pumping. Yes, we have to calculate some of the technical hydraulic retention time engineer techniques, but very simplified way. So I designed that. We did on ground. Right now, more than 5 major cities, we have multiplied that, replicated. Multan, Lahore, Karachi. Now we are looking towards the Islamabad and Khabeki, Khabeki, sorry, जो salt range है वहाँ पे, चकवाल वाली, खुशाब वाली side पे. The thing is, we need to come up with the local feasible solutions which is acceptable by the communities. This is the problem. Public perception, again, I'll come to that point from my last point. Karachi, कितनी बारिश होती है? 2 years back, there was a project we proposed, यार यहाँ पे rain water harvesting tanks लगाएं यार, लोग लगाएं. And I got the resistance from my peers. Oh भाई ये क्या कर रहे हो? कराची में तो बारिश नहीं होती. Fortunately or unfortunately, we installed 30 rainwater tanks and then we calculated, because those communities were actually fetching water or buying water from the tankers. अब वो 30 rainwater tanks ने, they saved more than 900,000 rupees or around $1 million in that spell. उन्होंने कहा जी हमने पानी नहीं खरीदा, हमने ये पानी स्टोर किया, हॉर्टिकल्चर में यूज किया, डोमेस्टिक पर्पसेस के लिए यूज किया. So the concept is there, science is there, just only thing, let's take some baby steps. We don't need some state-of-art system. Yes, we are planning to work with NASA as well, but this is at the macro level. We are working in Recharge Pakistan, which is multi-million-dollar project, one of the the major milestone for a country like Pakistan, in collaboration with the government, Ministry of Water Resources, Ministry of Climate Change. But the thing is, among the communities, we need a realization, and let's come up with a collaborative approach. छोटे-छोटे से baby steps लें and let's start. Instead, we are looking कि जी government कुछ करेगी या private sector हमें पैसे दे या development sector looking towards the international donor agencies. No, let's come up with a collaborative approach. Whatever the resources have, let's start with that. Don't hesitate. Maximum क्या होगा? Failure हो जाएगा. That's fine. We did, at least from our side, we did our portion. So this is the something on which we really need to think seriously, and let's start work on that.
चीज़ ऐड करता चलूँ. Me and Azim, we visited one of the area in Khushab. I forgot the name of that dam. मेरे ज़हन से निकल गया है. अच्छा, वो बड़े मज़े की कहानी है, बड़े मज़े की स्टोरी है वो. उसमें हुआ ये था कि there was a BS student, Afaf. Yes, उस बच्ची का नाम अफाफ था. And she was a US citizen and she has been diagnosed cancer, blood cancer, right? Last stage blood cancer. उसके पेरेंट्स जो थे वो दोनों डॉक्टर्स थे. सो दे हैव क्रिएटेड सम सॉर्ट ऑफ एसेट्स फॉर दैट. अपने बच्ची के लिए उन्होंने किया था. तो बच्ची को जब पता चला कि जी मेरे सर्वाइवल नहीं है, शी केम टू हर लैंड विच इज़ ये जो खुशाब के एरिया बनता है, इसमें वो आई और उसने देखा कि वहाँ पे सबसे बड़ा इशू जो उसकी कम्युनिटी का था वो ड्रिंकिंग वाटर का था. उसने मम्मा पापा को कहा कि बाबा ये जो आपने मेरे लिए चीज़ें जमा की हुई है ना, मैं तो सर्वाइव नहीं करूँगी, काइंडली आप इसको बेचें और यहाँ पे एक छोटा सा मिनी डैम कंस्ट्रक्ट कर दें. अब वो डैम कंस्ट्रक्ट हुआ. उन बच्ची का जो पेरेंट का एक टीचर था, उसके जिम्मे उन्होंने वो सिस्टम लगाया एंड दे हैव कंस्ट्रक्टेड अ स्मॉल डैम. ठीक है, अभी वो HDF एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, वो उसको देख रही है अफाफ डैम को, बट द स्टोरीज आर देयर. अगर आपके अंदर विल है एज ए कम्युनिटी लेवल के ऊपर, अगर विल है तो शायद, यस, सून वैली के अंदर, सून वैली के अंदर मिनी डैम, इट्स अ मिनी डैम. सो द पॉइंट इज कि अगर कम्युनिटी इटसेल्फ आती है, काम करना चाहती है, देयर इज नो हिंड्रेंस. इसके मल्टीपल एग्जांपल्स पोर्टहॉर रीजन के अंदर हमारे पास पड़ी हुई हैं, चकवाल रीजन के अंदर हमारे पास एग्जांपल्स हैं. लोगों ने छोटे छोटे सेल्फ डैम्स बनाए हुए हैं और वो वाटर को सेल कर रहे हैं. सो कपल ऑफ एग्जांपल्स आर मोर देयर सर. माय नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन फजील्दा, एक तो वही प्रीवियस क्वेश्चन के साथ मैं उसको लिंक करूंगा कि हर प्रोविंस ने अपनी पॉलिसी बना दी है. सो पॉलिसी गैप्स क्या हैं, नंबर वन. दूसरा, मैं थोड़ा सा इसको आगे लेके चलूंगा कि ग्राउंड वाटर की भी पॉलिसीज हैं, हिस्टोरिकल ग्राउंड वाटर पॉलिसीज इन पाकिस्तान विच यूज टू फैसिलिटेट द ग्राउंड वाटर ओवर एब्स्ट्रैक्शन. एक तो नॉर्मल एब्स्ट्रैक्शन रेट, एक ओवर एब्स्ट्रैक्शन रेट के हवाले से है कि हाउ डज द न्यू प्रोविंशियल लेजिस्लेशन एम टू एड्रेस दीज इश्यूज.
Thank you so much. So I'll come to the first question and respond to that. So as far as policy gaps are concerned, there are, whether we talk about climate change policies, the national adaptation plan, water policies, there are gaps in every policy. The policy, the institutional governance, at least the architecture of institutional governance is there. So you have, the national climate change policy, the provincial climate change policies, Punjab being the latest edition as we speak, they're finalizing it. But I'd say that the biggest gap is alignment. For instance, not just with the climate change policies, but also with the national adaptation plan. We know that for both climate and water, after the 18th Amendment, the provinces are responsible, right? The 18th Amendment to the Constitution has enabled the provinces to take the lead, and the federal government, whether it's in the Ministry of Climate Change, through the Ministry of Climate Change, or through the Ministry of Water Resources, is only has the role of overall coordination on our international climate commitments, or with respect to national water policy, for instance. I feel that the biggest gap, and the gap that I experience and we experience in our work, is the lack of coordination between the center and the provinces. आपकी climate change, जो पंजाब climate change policy की जो consultative session था, the policy was not aligned, for instance, with the National Adaptation Plan. The policy was not aligned with UNFCCC commitments. The policy, it mentioned a number of, it was a step in the right direction, and they worked. It's a wholesome policy document, but it doesn't really set out how it is drawing on the national climate change policy, on the national adaptation plan, and how it aims to coordinate between the center and the provinces. इसी तरह अगर for those of us who have the fortune of dealing with MOCC or Ministry of Water Resources, आप उनकी किसी भी स्टैंडिंग कमेटी की मीटिंग में चले जाएं, they will not know what is happening at the provincial level. In their meetings, so recently Climate Change Council की meeting थी, उसके minutes मेरे पास आए, somebody had asked me to comment on, prepare something for the uske minutes मेरे पास आए, and I was looking at the forest department, and I said, where is the stuff that's happening in Punjab? It was talking about air pollution, etc. And I said, there's no mention of PGDP. Where is the stuff that's happening in KP? Where are the provincial projects that are really leading the implementation of and the commitment towards your nationally determined contributions and towards the Paris Agreement? So that to me is the biggest gap. Now coming, to the second part, and I'm conscious of time. Coming to the second part, as far as historical groundwater policy is concerned, I mean, this is something that I've looked at, in a lot of depth in my doctoral research. Essentially, in pre-colonial times, groundwater was a communal resource because you go back to a time where groundwater is not mechanized, right? And the way that wells were operated were through oxens, and that wheel that was used, that the oxens would take the wheel around, and you had turns. The community members had turns, for watering their fields. Um, Going from the colonial, so it's going from a communal sort of ownership of groundwater, which of course limited its scale. The British, by the way they developed surface water in this huge architecture, colonial, canal irrigation system. The groundwater was not, and that's what my research documents, that groundwater only became important to the state in the post-colonial period because of the difficulties that the British government had with really making the tube wells work. उस टाइम पे वर्ल्ड वॉर हो रही थी, सामान मंगाना, ट्यूबवेल की ड्रिलिंग एटसेट्रा, इट वाज ऑल प्रॉब्लमैटिक. यूपी वाज एबल टू, इन यूनाइटेड इंडिया, यूपी वाज एबल टू मेक अ ब्रेक थ्रू, बट पंजाब वाज नोवेयर देयर, एंड इट ओनली हैपेंड after independence. And really, the groundwater boom came about in the 60s and 70s with, the scaling up of tube wells, and then after public tube wells were installed for SCARP, for managing salinity and waterlogging, uske baad wo tube wells, government was not able to maintain them. They became they had to privatize the tube wells. Now we've come to a point where the groundwater is pretty much an individual's concern. The only relationship that you have with the state in the extraction of groundwater is the electricity, is through the electric connection, if your tube well is electric, right? That's the only relationship that a groundwater user has with the state. We know that more than 88% of the tube wells are diesel operated. So effectively, and now, an overwhelming majority of tube wells are going over solar ever since the price hike. So effectively, groundwater users have no relationship with the state. They're pumping by way of the Easements Act, which back in 1892, it was a colonial piece of legislation which said कि अगर आपकी ज़मीन है तो ज़मीन के नीचे you can access, by way of easement, you can access the water underneath. This was superseded by, by recent provincial legislation. We've seen one in Punjab 2019, KP 2020. They really mirror images of each other and draw on the UK Water Act. And essentially, to me, they don't really say how the earlier pieces of legislation, whether the Canal and Drainage Act, PIDRA Act aane ke baad thoda sa, there's been more clarity, but how the Canal and Drainage Act, is superseded by the Punjab Water Act, how the Easements Act is superseded, or whether it is or it isn't. What they essentially say is that, now there are two authorities, which is the Punjab Water Commission and the Punjab Water Resources Regulatory Authority, that are now going to issue licenses to undertakers. Undertakers can be your VASAs, irrigation departments, etc., public or private, right? So they're now going to issue licenses to undertakers to then supply water services. There is, in our conversations with the irrigation department, 4 साल हो गए हैं, 4 साल से ज़्यादा हो गए हैं, पंजाब वाटर एक्ट आए हुए, KP के आए हुए को तकरीबन 3.5 साल हो गए. In our conversations, they have not yet been able to, the meetings for KP has happened. Nazim will probably, shed more light on it. Most of my work is with the Punjab government. But they have not been able to operationalize the Water Resources Regulatory Authority that will then issue licensing through VASAs and through the irrigation department. Uske bhi, there were all sorts of institutional issues that a number of donors have helped them with. But even with this new piece of legislation, it becomes in a setting like Pakistan, like India, where there are lots of smallholders, right? A lot of smallholder farmers, it becomes very, very difficult to govern groundwater for its sustainability. It becomes very difficult to tag all of these or to meet, meterization. Spain has experimented with decentralized management of groundwater. India ने वो बना दी है Central Groundwater Authority, which has notified critically affected areas. But in a smallholder economy, it becomes very difficult uh, uh, to for sustainable groundwater governance to take place, despite these well-meaning policies. We know that how Azim was talking about how politically sensitive water is. The irrigation department, they came up with Abhiana का जब उन्होंने दिसंबर में रेज किया तो उन्होंने they asked for support for coming up with economic pricing of groundwater, right? I mean, this is a question for all of these the people in the room. How do you come up with economic pricing? How will you?
फ़ाखर साहब आपसे मेरा क्वेश्चन है कि जिस तरह शुरू में हमारी डिस्कशन थोड़ी सी हुई है कि PCRWR वाटर कंजर्वेशन के ऊपर या रिचार्ज के ऊपर काम कर रहा है. इट्स अ वंडरफुल टेक्निक्स दे हैव बीन यूजिंग फॉर. लेकिन अगर इसको हम देखा जाए ये कोई नई टेक्निक नहीं है. आई रिमेंबर जब हम छोटे थे तो हमारी जो मदर थी वो जैसी बारिश होती थी तो परनाला जिसको कहा जाता है उसके सामने वो बकेट रख देती थी, पानी इकट्ठा होता था और उससे फिर वो घर साफ़ होता था या कपड़े धोए जाते थे. आई रिमेंबर वेरी वेल. सो एटलीस्ट एक बात तो अच्छी है कि हमने दोबारा नेचर की तरफ जाना शुरू हो गए हैं. मेरा क्वेश्चन आपसे ये है सर कि इसके अलावा PCRWR बीइंग एन गवर्नमेंट एंटिटी क्या रिसर्च टूल्स यूज़ करती है नेचर बेस्ड सोल्यूशन के अलावा कि वो वाटर कंजर्वेशन की तरफ जाए?
सर
मेरा क्वेश्चन पर्टिकुलरली ग्राउंड वाटर के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में सर आपसे.
ओके. सर इसमें देखिए हम अक्सर ये जब वाटर एक्सपर्ट्स की कहीं पे सिटिंग होती है तो ये बात की जाती है कि हमारे पास lot of policies we have, lot of research we have already, and we know that what is good to do. और इस वक्त और बहुत सारे बाकी इस तरह की चीज़ें जो हमारे पास अवेलेबल हैं. हमारे पास सारे लाइक ड्रिप इरीगेशन इज़ बेस्ट today's technology for irrigation. Everybody knows it, and it's there. It's on table. For water quality treatment, we know कि उसमें अगर हमारे पास आर्सेनिक का इशू है तो how to test the groundwater for arsenic contamination या other heavy metals या any other chemical parameters. So technology is there. How to use and how to get it to our table, that is the challenge at the moment. So जिस तरह हमारे पास पॉलिसीज अवेलेबल हैं, हमारे पास रिसर्च अवेलेबल है, आई थिंक a lot of our challenges are already covered, frankly speaking. Being researcher, you are working in research organization, Sohail Saab and our almost all panelists are connected with universities. So for every challenge we have at least technology available. We have policy available, we have technology available, coordination is issue, madam has pointed out in her speech. So coordination needs to be made efficient, and then the technologies available, they need to be made available for our local use. और उसके I think कोई ऐसी चीज़ इस वक्त नहीं है जो already हमने cover नहीं की. So it's time for action. I mean, we have learned. If we are not, we have not learned, and that's why we are waiting. Then we have to learn and start. So we have the things available. I think we need to take some action. Thank you.
I just want to know your thoughts because कि आपका काम भी सोलर के ऊपर है. एक मिथ है कि सोलर लगाने से जो ग्राउंड वाटर टेबल है वो मज़ीद नीचे जा रहा है, डिक्लाइन हो रहा है. ठीक है, मतलब एज ए लेमैन हम कहते हैं यार सोलर लगाया तो पानी अब उस जो फार्मर की मर्जी है कि वो दिन में 10 घंटे लगाए, 20 घंटे लगाए, जो भी उसका व्हाटसोएवर द टाइम इज अवेलेबल फॉर इट. सो व्हाट डू यू थिंक सर, जो आपका प्रैक्टिकल एक्सपीरियंस है वो क्या कहते हैं कि क्या ये मिथ दुरुस्त है या गलत है?
ये आप आउट ऑफ सिलेबस क्वेश्चन पे चलेंगे. अच्छा नहीं, इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन. देखें, एक तो ये कि सोलर इज़ बीइंग अडॉप्टेड एट अ वेरी एक्सपोनेंशियल रेट इन मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द कंट्री. and it will obviously penetrate each and every circle. So we have to embrace this technology. It's a green technology. आपके पास operational cost नहीं है, so there's no harm with the technology. अच्छा, आप जो the question that you have is whether it is leading to the groundwater depletion further or not. Let me give you, it's more of an empirical evidence based on the data that we have collected from another project that I was leading. Uh, Majority of the diesel tube wells are having the capacity of 20 HP or above. Majority of the electric tube wells have even more capacities. ठीक है, जो HPs उसके हैं वो ज़्यादा होते हैं. If you run a diesel tube well for like 2-3 hours a day or 4 hours a day, and you run a electric tube well, so the discharge or the water that it basically draws from the ground is more as compared to the average solar tube well that is installed by the farmers. Majority cases they install a tube well, and these are the farmers who are considerably large farmers of maximum capacity of 10 HP. और अगर आपने इसको कंपेयर करना है तो 10 किलो वाट का अगर सिस्टम आप लगाएंगे तो उस पर आप 10 HP का ही पंप चला सकते हैं. ये एक सिंपल सा फॉर्मूला है. 10 किलो वाट का सिस्टम लगाने का मकसद ये है कि इट्स ए कंसिडरेबल इन्वेस्टमेंट. आपको लैंड काफ़ी चाहिए होता है, और लैंड की जो है वर्थ ज़्यादा है. दे डोंट कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ ऑन देयर लैंड. तो अगर आपको मेजॉरिटी केसेस में सिस्टम्स मिलेंगे तो 10 HP से ज़्यादा नहीं मिलेंगे. मेजॉरिटी जो है वो 5 है, 7.5 है, इतना है. अब वो जो डिस्चार्ज ड्रॉ करता है दैट इज टिपिकली डिपेंडेंट ऑन द वाटर टेबल. द डीपर द वाटर टेबल इज, द मोर द कैपेसिटी ऑफ द इंस्टॉल्ड सोलर दैट यू रिक्वायर. अब वो जब कैपेसिटी आपको और चाहिए तो आपकी कॉस्ट और बढ़ जाएगी. तो in average case where the water table in the rural setting is around, let's say, 40 feet or 50 feet, from a 10 HP pump you can draw maximum half a cubic of water. अभी हाफ ऑफ क्यूसिक जो आप निकाल रहे हैं वो आप कंपेयर नहीं कर सकते विद द डीजल और इलेक्ट्रिक. दे आर टिपिकली 2 to 3 क्यूसिक्स मिनिमम. तो अगर ये 10 घंटे चला भी लेता है दिन में, विच इज़ एन एग्जेजरेशन, एवरेज आवर्स जो हमने कैलकुलेट किए हैं, जो इफेक्टिव आवर्स हैं, वो 6 to 7 जाते हैं मैक्सिमम, वो भी समर में. विंटर में और भी कम हो जाते हैं. तो ये जो मिथ है ना कि सोलर लगेगा और उससे ग्राउंड वाटर डिप्लीट कर जाएगा, ये आई वुड कंसिडर कि ये फैक्चुअली करेक्ट नहीं है. द अदर थिंग इज़ कि डिप्लीशन कैसे हो रही है. देयर हैज़ टू बी, फिर हम आते हैं पॉलिसी की तरफ जिस पे फजीदर पॉइंट कर रही थी, कि द पीपल हु गेट बेनिफिट फ्रॉम द गवर्नमेंट इन टर्म्स ऑफ इंस्टॉलिंग द सोलर, there are subsidized solar schemes run by each and every provincial government, whereby they are providing solar, let's say, on a subsidy of 60% or somewhere 70%. So they have to make sure either they provide those to the people who do not have access to groundwater, और उन zones में दें जहाँ पे ground water usable भी है. Yeah, there has to be a policy. Those who would avail the subsidy, they have to abandon their existing diesel or electric pumps, which is a very hard thing. That's the personal investment. People would not forgo what they've invested. So the depletion is happening where you have the already installed diesel or electric pumps with the farmer, but they see there's a new thing in the market, so let's avail that subsidy as well. And when they are availing the subsidy, there hasn't been any check that they already have the other pumps, so why to provide similar subsidized pumps to those farmers? So that's the reality of the matter. Otherwise, if you see, the other thing that we have seen is in terms of the agricultural area growth or the fallow lands that the farmers were not able to sort of cultivate, particularly in the desert areas. This solar has brought a kind of revolution. There are so many mobile solar tube wells which farmers have invested, and they are communal also. So they basically, take it from one farmer to the other, pay a small rent, and they use those tube wells to irrigate small pockets of land that they have, and the water table is also shallow there. So it's a very, very effective sort of technology for those who do not have, permanent or smaller lands to use or make use of those. So the technology is better. I think it's greener. Its operational costs are almost negligible. But the problem is that, where to promote this technology. And we have extensive discussions with the on-farm water management department of KP and in Punjab as well, whereby we have carried out hotspot analysis or the sort of vulnerability analysis that, which are the areas which are more prone to groundwater table decline, or where the recharge of the groundwater is less as compared to other areas. So we have done all the mapping in Punjab. We are doing the same stuff in KP now. And we suggest to the government of Punjab Agriculture Department that you should only target, these subsidized schemes to areas where you have enough recharge of groundwater, so that, the use of the groundwater is sustainable. At the end of the day, there has to be balance of what you are extracting from the groundwater and what you are basically injecting back in the groundwater. So if that balance is maintained, it's perfectly all right. Promote this technology. You'll have a I don't know. People know here or not. 5 million tons or something of carbon emissions were only coming from the agriculture sector back in 2015. I don't have the latest numbers now. The oil import bill that we pay as a nation, there's a major chunk that goes towards this diesel operated tube wells. So there's a lot of benefit in converting to solar. So I strongly sort of promote this idea, but it has to be in a sustainable fashion. That's the only catch.
So thank you very much, Dr. Azim. And with this, I will open up the session for questions. Ji Abid sir.
Very good panel also, because luckily I know most of the people sitting in the panel. They are highly educated and well connected with the ground realities. I have the ideas which I want to give some and say as recommendations. I have been in this sector for more than 35 years in the water sector. So if I start from the Recharge Pakistan, that I am from the Water Sprint company. We were the pioneers to develop the feasibility of the Recharge Pakistan. So with our three partners, which were Neela and Shurman and Deltares and the Pegasus. And we were the lead consultants. And luckily, it was very good to have a huge funding of nearly $68 million for this recharge. And we expect that will be highly useful. All the nature-based solutions which we are talking about, I have been working on this subject in 5-6 countries for the nature-based solutions and eco-based adaptations, and coupled with the other regenerative water-producing elements apart from this. I have been in charge of the USAID funding for $25 million in the PPF World Bank funding. In 1998, there was a huge drought in Pakistan. There was a big project of drought mitigation and preparedness plan. I was also heading that. We had large number of mini dams, projects and rain harvester schemes across Pakistan. There were only in Khushab we did almost 50 mini dams and delay action dams. And the dam which we're talking, Shahid Saab was talking about. Luckily, I was the person who went to survey that dam in Kufriya in the Soon Valley. That was for the ill patient of small girl. I went in January 22 to visit that area. HDF actually invited me to visit that area. It will be a little bit more effective. So that is for the larger areas of Pakistan. Apart, we were discussing the city of Lahore. If you consider the city of Rawalpindi, where we have more than 200 tube wells, more than 500 tube wells. Islamabad, more than 200 tube wells. And you say that there is very little storage in that area, because a huge water in the Nala Lai comes almost every year. And after 5-10 years, there's almost a flooding in that area. So if you still see that I have the chance to implement more than five small dams in the entire Port of Origin, which is 22,000 square kilometers of area, and more than 50 small dams in Pakistan and in Cambodia and Vietnam, Sudan as well. So but I have seen that there are no much subsurface water dams in Pakistan. We are more emphasizing on the surface dams, but the subsurface dams also need to be implemented and designed in this area. There was an American company, they approached me for the designing of this small dams, because that is one of the most important element that needs to be constructed in Africa, in Mexico, in California. They are being practiced. But unfortunately, that is not here. If we also include this as part of our water strategy, so that will be very helpful. And I'm very glad to see that representative of USAID, Azim Saab, is over here. I think that that is one of the best forum to consider these things. That how we have to inculcate all these things, even the apart from this, the urban flooding. If you see in the Lahore, the highest rainfall last few weeks back, that was not 330, that was 355 millimeters. The highest, that was at the airport. That was the highest. But other areas had 150, 200, 250. So this was sort of the rainfall. But again, you see, there is no storage of water in the city. The question comes, how the city can absorb, apart from the recharge wells, which the PCRWR is doing a very good job. Here comes the bioswales. If all the bioswales within the city, we see that we don't have green patches in the city much, because due to the ill urban planning, if we make a compulsory arrangement of the bioswales within the city, I'm pretty sure the millions and millions of gallons can only be stored and recharged in the cities. So that needs to be accustomed, I think, and this all has to be part of the policy as well. A very good word used by my friend Fakhar Saab, that we have a graveyard of policies, national water policies, acts, and of the provinces as well. I myself has been part of the water policy for the IWRM policy of Balochistan. I was part of the ADB team before. We worked for 3 to 4 years, including the COVID year. And I rather went a number of times and met each and every secretary and all to the lower tier of that province. And again, the question was that the policy, my word was to the cabinet, it can never be implemented. How? I'll just give you one example, because my other friends also needs to be, they are waiting for the questions. I went to meet the academia people. There is a Kakar Saab in the Balochistan University. If you naam bhul gaya. Eh? No, Faiz nahi. Dean Kakar, something Dean. He is a geophysicist in the head of the department in the Balochistan University. I went to meet him as well, because I was having the key informant interviews and focus group discussions with every person over there. He told us a very good, a realistic story. He said that the Chief Minister, Aslam Raisani, was a CM. He said he was going to inaugurate a hospital in a certain area. The hospital was not very big in Quetta. Before that hospital was to be inaugurated, he said, I went to him and I apprised him of a grave situation of the Quetta Valley. The valley of Quetta, the water is now 1,450 feet deep, because I went to that place where the water was being pumped. And now water will be brought from 250 kilometers, Babar Kach Dam, you know all that area. So number of other places also, Mangi Dam. So these will bring water to Quetta. Water, there is now nearly no recharge. We are now approaching the fossil water. The recharge water is being totally exhausted. When you approach the fossil water, the water experts know it means the danger, the red light. He said that I went to the governor. He said that if you are governor, that CM is going to inaugurate the hospital. To my study, the ground of the Quetta will depart. Zameen phat jayegi. What are you talking about? He said in a very hard language. Ab hame dra rahe hain? You are getting us scares? Please don't talk like this. Our all construction or our development will stop like this. He said that actually what happened just 2-3 days before the inauguration, ज़मीन फट गई, एक्चुअली ज़मीन फट गई और सारे हॉस्पिटल में तरेड़े आ गए, दराड़ें, क्रैक्स आ गए और हॉस्पिटल की इनॉग्रेशन हो सकी। तो कहते हैं जी मुझे मेरे पास द पीपल अप्रोच्ड मी फ्रॉम द गवर्नमेंट, यू कीप योर माउथ शट, you don't have to speak. What we are doing, we are extracting water, the big gaps are being created in the hollows in the ground. So this is what we are doing actually to the ground. We are, on the other way, we are doing the management. He informed about the actual situation in the ground that big hollows are being created. So if you are extracting the fossil water, the recharge water is also gone. You have to think of the fossil water, irtakai pani, जो ओरिजिनल पानी है ज़मीन के अंदर, दैट इज़ द फॉसिल वाटर. आपने उसको मेंटेन करना है कि आपकी ज़मीन ना फट जाए. थैंक यू वेरी मच.
Thank you, Ji. My name is Engineer Muhammad Asif. I'm consultant engineer. One thing I observed while making policy, Government of Punjab save drinking water to each home by 2030. On the same time, federal government applies taxes on the bottles on your table. This is a contradiction. I raised the point at that time. The policy of the Government of Punjab is this one, whereas the federal government sale tax on the drinking water. This is a responsibility of state, whereas we need to clarify all these things. And the topic which is discussed here is a very nice and very awareness session is very nice for this. Practically, we are getting problems of water. But as far as the rainwater, which is plenty of water in our Pakistan, we don't have proper arrangement for dams are there, but the specialists of the peoples of Punjab irrigation and dams were there. Punjab land is not properly for the dams. This is what this is. Anyhow, we have to find the ways where we need to conserve the water. The topic is different dimensions. Right from the mindset of the peoples to save the water. A second thing, the peoples working in organization. I am also ISO 14000 lead auditor. I perform audit in one of leather industries. I conduct audit. The rest, everything was in operation. Wastewater treatment. They were well aware about the wastewater treatment operations and the awareness. But once the audit completed, and then I say, I have to go back in the plant to see what is your wastewater treatment. All the plants were shut down because they assumed auditor has gone. This is what the mindset of the peoples. हमें अपना माइंडसेट फ्रॉम द लोकल, हमें अपना पानी को कंजर्वेशन हमें टैप से बचाना है. हम जब टूथपेस्ट करते हैं तो हमें उसमें भी बचाना है. ये अवेयरनेस सेशन हमें हर लेवल पे देना है. पानी का मामला आगे बढ़ता जाना है, इसमें कोई शक नहीं. हमें थल में जाके स्प्रिंकलिंग टेक्नोलॉजी इस्तेमाल करनी है. हमने अपनी एग्रीकल्चर को भी प्रमोट करना है, हमने अपनी प्रोडक्शन को भी बढ़ाना है, हमने पानी को भी सेव करना है. हमने लोगों को अवेयरनेस भी देनी है कि भाई आप पानी को सेव करें घर से, राइट फ्रॉम द हेयर. आधी बोतल छोड़ के लोग चले जाते हैं. दिस इज़ व्हाट एनवायरनमेंट स्पेशलिस्ट से, दिस इज़ रॉन्ग. वहाँ से रिसाइकलिंग होती है, वेस्ट पॉलीथीन जो भी कुछ है. तो हम तो ये भी नहीं करते कि आधी बोतल छोड़ के चले जाते. तो ये माइंड सेट राइट फ्रॉम द बिगिनिंग हमें करना पड़ेगा. इसके लिए मैं बहुत आई अप्रिशिएट व्हाट द डिस्कशंस दे आर वेरी स्पेशलिस्ट पीपल आर डिस्कस ऑन अ वेरी, मैं समझता बहुत अच्छे अंदाज से कर रहे हैं. और इसको मेरा ख्याल है कि पब्लिकली भी थोड़ा सा आगे बढ़ाना चाहिए और मीडिया में भी देना चाहिए इसको. थैंक यू वेरी मच.
जी, अस्सलाम वालेकुम. I am engineer Shaila Safwan. I've been with CDPR. I keep on seeing multiple things, but it's the first time I physically came in here. So first of all, I would definitely appreciate a very insightful session. Very nice to hear from all of you, because water and water crisis, this has not been my specialty. I've been a telecom engineer, worked with PTCL, and I was in the policy, quality assurance, and governance domain. Yes, we used to make policy documents, and then of course I was having the field team as well. We were the auditors also for them. We used to see whatever was written for them, have they implemented that or not? So surprisingly, जब एक audit करते थे हम, the things were कि even within a one department, if there were sub departments होते हैं, and they prepared for the auditor is coming in and they had to prepare, but they were never bothered with वो चीज़ which was linking with the other department, जो दूसरे सब department के साथ link करता था, वहाँ पे gaps remained there. So this has been the management mindset in our areas. And but here what I would say is कि अगर climate action policy is there, so that is the need. As Fakhar Saab said, everything is done, like technology is there, awareness is there at this level where all the stakeholders are sitting in. So action is required ना, तो action के लिए तो फिर why don't you people take the first step? We don't need big finance, as Dr. Saab said, कि we need baby steps. आपने पायलट प्रोजेक्ट्स कितने सारे डिस्कस कर दिए विच वॉज वेरी होपफुल, लेकिन उसको स्केल अप तो कर सकते हैं ना, एंड इट नीड्स टू बी कस्टमाइज. दूसरे एरिया में वही चीज़ क्यों नहीं हो रही है? एंड इफ़ यू सेड कि कम्युनिटी नहीं आ रही है, तो आई डोंट थिंक लाइक दिस. सोलराइजेशन जो हुआ था दैट वाज ऑन एवरी वंस पर्सनल कैपेसिटी, बट देन गवर्नमेंट इंटरवीन लेटर ऑन, वो अपना ट्रस्ट जो बन रहा था वो भी ख़राब किया गया. सो ऐसा नहीं है, मतलब कम्युनिटी इज़ ऑलवेज देयर टू वर्क ऑन इट. वी नीड ट्रस्ट. If USAID is there and an individual is there, उनको build up PCR WR नहीं करना है. I don't know आपकी government organization है या आप उसको represent करें. First and foremost responsibility for the action is at government end now. They have to be open, transparent, कि वो दो लोगों को connect करें. So that is going to be the sustainable solution. And last but not the least, risk management पे काम करती हूँ. Disaster is something which is when the hazard has happened. So we are on that stage. हमें disaster management पे आ गए हैं, तो we are not proactive. अगर हमने पहले से capacity building नहीं की है, तो जो अगला flood 6-7 साल बाद expected है, वो उससे भी पहले आ जाएगा. So this is the time for action.
It was a riverine flood, but 2022 was not a riverine flood. It was an abnormal rainfall pattern. And this is what it is predicted or sort of forecasted कि 24 के अंदर अगर flood आ गया, I'm using the word agar, so people will forget the 2022 flood क्योंकि इतना आपका moisture atmosphere के अंदर hold कर चुका है. So thank you very much.
My name is Numair. I work at IGC. We briefly touched upon the issue of water pricing and how potentially revenues can be collected from that. South Asia is amongst the regions of the world where water is very low priced, and even after that low price, the revenue is not collected. I feel that a lot needs to be done in this area. Mechanisms need to be set up. Even in Lahore, we have examples of private housing societies. They're collecting revenues on water. They're increasing the importance of the issue that you cannot go on wasting water. You cannot wash your cars out on the street. You have to, you maybe use buckets of water to do it. So I think we need to scale it up when it comes to Lahore and other mega cities. We need to conserve water. We need to price it, and we need to come up with a way where we can collect revenue on that. It's not just about water conservation. There are other services that are also linked to water supply. So the entire sewerage and sewage service, there's no channel for the government to collect revenue on that. So in many of the countries, these utilities are grouped together. They supply water and they charge you enough money to also cater for your sewerage. So Lahore doesn't only have clean water supply problem, it also has a sewage problem. And the pricing for both needs to be done together. And somehow we need to have this revenue collection mechanism where Lahore can operate on a sustainable basis. So I would like to have comments on this. Thank you.
Ji, thank you very much. Very pertinent points from the esteemed listeners. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab. You mentioned very well about the water sprint where our consultant, and they really worked with WWF, and Dr. Naveed Alam is a good friend. WWF has a history working with the Pegasus. So Recharge Pakistan is as a nation, this is our achievement, not only just for WWF or for others. So this is quite important. And we need to multiply, and I do agree your other points. जो subsurface का, yes, this is missing from our national level policy. So we need to come up with these solutions. Just like जैसा बलूचिस्तान में कारेज का था, 2,800 total कारेज हैं बलूचिस्तान के अंदर, and the PCRWR conducted research. One of my friend, he was a regional director there. Half of them are obsolete, खत्म हो गए. And why this is because this is something we need to come up again कि जी हमने water को store करके किस तरह से उसके साथ artificially connect करना है. So coming back to the your point, sir, on the water pricing. Yes, this is very important. We need to do that. अभी सर ने leather की example दी. We are working very closely with the leather. और मेरे पास stats हैं कि एक leather industry on an average daily basis पे 900 to 1200 cubic meter water use करती है. 1200 cubic meter means 12 million liters एक दिन में. हम एक रिचार्ज वेल डिज़ाइन करते हैं फॉर 1 acre, और अभी हमने ये डिफरेंट यूनिवर्सिटीज़ में इंस्टॉल किए हुए हैं, बहुत लो कॉस्ट पे हैं. One recharge well at 1 acre in Lahore has a capacity to save 5 million liters of the water on annual basis, which is a big number. इसी तरह से ही एब्लूशन वाटर, मैं जो पॉइंट अब थोड़ा सा डिस्कस करना चाह रहा हूँ, इट विल नॉट बी डायरेक्टली लिंक्ड विद द प्राइसिंग, बट द थिंग इज वाटर रिसाइकलिंग कॉन्सेप्ट को भी हमें प्रमोट करने की ज़रूरत है. डू वी हैव एनी वाटर रिसाइकलिंग पॉलिसी? आई डाउट ऑन दैट. नो. पाकिस्तान का मसला वाटर मैनेजमेंट का जो है वो ज़्यादा है एज़ कम्पेयर टू वाटर स्केर्सिटी. बीइंग अ वाटर स्टूडेंट मैं ये कह सकता हूँ 17-18 साल में आई वर्क इन डिफरेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इंटरनेशनल एज वेल, क्योंकि वी डोंट हैव दैट. हम वो नहीं कह रहे कि जिस तरह से एक, आई बिलीव आप लोगों ने सुना होगा, वन प्रोफेसर रेज द ग्लास इन द क्लास एंड सेड दिस वाटर इज ड्रंक 3 times बिफोर. रिसाइकल हुआ दोबारा, और उनके जापान में हो रहा है. हम उस लेवल पे नहीं जा सकते. बीइंग अ मुस्लिम कंट्री वी कांट अलाउ, हमारी वो सारी बात है, बट वी नीड टू प्रमोट दैट रिसाइकल एटलीस्ट फॉर डोमेस्टिक पर्पज, फॉर इंडस्ट्रियल पर्पजेस. आई कैन कोट फिगर्स मेरे पास, क्योंकि बीइंग एन इंजीनियर वी प्ले विद द फिगर्स एंड वी लव विद द फिगर्स. कि जी वाटर फुटप्रिंट स्टडी जो हमने करवाई थी कि आपका ब्लू वाटर, ग्रे वाटर, ग्रीन वाटर कितना यूज होता है. टी शर्ट आई एम वेयरिंग 7,000 लीटर ऑफ द वाटर. अच्छा, अब इसके फिर पोस्ट कंज्यूमर आगे क्या प्रैक्टिसेस हैं. अच्छा, हम कहते हैं यूरोपियन मार्केट्स एंड इंटरनेशनल मार्केट्स दे क्रिटिसाइज आवर डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज. व्हाई? क्योंकि यहाँ पे हम मैन्युफैक्चर करते हैं टेक्सटाइल, लेदर, एक्सपोर्ट उधर चला गया, वेस्ट इधर रह गया. डर्टी इंडस्ट्री इधर है, वहां पे फैंसी है शेल्व्स में, बिकॉज दे आर पेइंग द प्राइस. एंड दिस इज समथिंग वी आर एक्सेप्टिंग. दिस इज समथिंग वी नीड टू वर्क एट द स्ट्रेटेजिक लेवल एज वेल. कि ठीक है भाई, एक तरफ तो हम कर रहे हैं, बट आपका ज़्यादा शेयर, जो हम बात कर रहे थे ना, जब ये क्लाइमेट 2022 का जब फ्लड आया तो उसके बाद कॉप्स हुई, और उसमें यही हमने कहा कि वी आर पेइंग मोर. सो वी नीड टू वर्क एट बोथ लेवल. वन, हमें वाटर रिसाइकलिंग को प्रमोट करना है कि इसकी जो प्राइस है, अब वही बात है कि एक बॉटल्ड वाटर है. अब मैं आई प्लान इंटेंशनली कि जी ये पानी जो मैंने पिया बच गया मैं साथ लेके जाऊँगा, बट इट्स एक्सपेंसिव. और जो रिसाइकलिंग का कॉन्सेप्ट है, दिस इज समथिंग कि हम अपनी उसको सप्लाई चेन में कैसे रिड्यूस कर सकते हैं. एंड ऑन द अदर साइड एट द गवर्नमेंट लेवल कि इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे हाउ वी कैन प्रोपगेट कि जी ये हाउ टू मेक दैट बैलेंस इन आवर बिजनेसेस एज वेल. कि पाकिस्तान के लिए वो नॉट ऑलवेज बी कि जी डू मोर. वी हैव डन अ लॉट. आई कैन बेट यू इफ यू कंपेयर द वाटर management practices with our neighboring countries, Pakistan is having far much better technology, far much better engineers, far much better scientists. हमारा तो ये होता रहता है, because I am chairing one of the I am actually co-chair एक international standard है, Alliance for Water Stewardship Standard. Scottish standard है, 11 countries के लोग हैं, उसके members हैं, including all the big champs, जितने भी बड़े आप नाम लें brands के और other. And we are steering that, और हाँ we are teaching them कि भाई इस स्टैंडर्ड के अंदर ये. Why? Because we struggled more. हमें पता है कि यार लीस्ट लेवल पे that is something, और इस तरह से आप अपने वाटर मैनेजमेंट में किस तरह से चेंजेस ला सकते हैं. So this is something, yes, for the policy level these are the experts. Pricing के हवाले से like what should be there, but we need to think in that way as well, how to promote the local practices in recycling. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One last question, ji. Sir ne kaha. So it's the last question.
Thank you very much. एक तो बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग डिस्कशन थी मेरे लिए बीइंग एन इकोनॉमिस्ट. मैं सोच रहा था कि वी शुड बी डिस्कसिंग अबाउट इकोनॉमिक्स ऑफ वाटर रिसोर्सेज भी इसमें. एक हमारे जो कोलीग हैं बैठे हुए IGC के, उन्होंने बात की प्राइसिंग के हवाले से. I mean, we used to have long-term plans in 1960s, 70s. We built dam and everything, you know. उसके बाद now we are getting used to election cycle plans. That is why we are not building any dams, etc. अब PDM1, PDM2 के बाद तो हम एक साल की प्लानिंग पे आ गए. This is what is happening because I was part and parcel of Planning and Development Board. Currently, I am working with the UNDP. So these are the issues we have been facing, and there is no seriousness on the part of the government. If you talk about the government. एंड देर इज़ एक्सेलेंट वाटर नेशनल वाटर पॉलिसी जो आपने मेंशन किया. आई मीन बहुत डिलिब्रेशन के बाद काउंसिल ऑफ कॉमन इंटरेस्ट ने इसको सिंध की बहुत सीरियस किस्म के ऑब्जर्वेशन थे, उसके बाद उसको एड्रेस करके वो किया. वाटर मीटरिंग अनदर इशू. आई मीन देर इज़ पॉलिटिकल इकोनॉमी पे हम बात नहीं कर रहे यहाँ की. आपकी पॉलिटिशियंस की, आपकी कैबिनेट की, आपकी पार्लियामेंट की विल ही नहीं है कि आप ये जो वासास वगैरह हैं आप इस पर कोई बिजनेस मॉडल लेके आएँ, कोई इसको आप प्राइसेस वगैरह को बेहतर करें कि आप रेवेन्यू जनरेट कर सकें. वासा इस बेसिकली किस तरह रन हो रहे हैं, सारा गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से ग्रांट जाती है, सब्सिडी जाती है. दिस इज़ व्हाट इज़ हैपनिंग. आई मीन आई वाज इन न्यूजीलैंड एंड जब हमने 5 बॉयज़ दे वर रिजाइडिंग इन 5 बेडरूम अपार्टमेंट घर था, वहाँ उससे पहले हमसे पहले एक वाइफ हस्बैंड की भी और एक उनका इन्फेंट रहता था. जैसे ही हम लोग गए, मुसलमान पानी से बहुत ज़्यादा यूज़ करते हैं, वज़ू, नमाज़ें, शावर, ये वो, तो उनके लेटर आना शुरू हो गए कौंसिल की तरफ से कि कहीं आपकी लीकेजेस तो नहीं शुरू हो गई.
एग्जैक्टली.
सो दैट इज़ हाउ. आई मीन आप अगर एग्जांपल लें न्यूजीलैंड की, आई मीन उनके लेक और रिवर्स आर लाइक ओशंस. हम लोगों के तो सारे दरिया भी खुश्क हो चुके हैं एंड वी आर नॉट सीरियस अबाउट वाटर कंजर्वेशन. ये बहुत सीरियस इशू है. Lastly, if you talk about the public sector development program or annual development program, what we are allocating for the water resource management, only 8 to 10%. If you talk about the federal government, if you talk about the provincial government, so there is no seriousness about the water management or water storage or etc. अब लाहौर के केस में हमने क्या किया, हमने 1-1 अरब 2-2 अरब के वाटर स्टोरेज टैंक बनाने शुरू कर दिए लाहौर में, निश्तर में. आई मीन वाटर अभी भी आपने देखा कि उसके बाद क्या मेस क्रिएट हुआ. हम लोग वो जो सलूशन है सस्टेनेबल सलूशन, हम लोग ये कहते हैं कि बस 6 महीने में नकवी साहब आएँ, साल गुजार के किसी तरह लाहौर को डबल स्टोरी से ट्रिपल स्टोरी बना दें. आई मीन इसके अलावा मेरा नहीं ख्याल कि ये एड्रेस इस तरह होंगे कि जब तक हमारे जो एक्सपर्ट्स बैठे हुए हैं तो सेंसिटाइज करें, जाके लेक्चर वगैरह दें. अभी पाशा साहब गए हुए थे असेंबली में, उनको टॉक दी जाके इकोनॉमी के हवाले से. यही जो चीज़ें, यही जाके मेरे ख्याल में आपको अब असेंबली और कैबिनेट को जाकर लेक्चर देना चाहिए उनको. वो कहते हैं कि हमें एजुकेट करें, सीरियसली हमें कहते हैं, तो ये काम मेरे ख्याल में अब वहाँ करने वाला है.
Especially regarding the aquifer of Lahore. Lahore is perched on alluvium, which is about 1,000 feet in thickness, and there is a bedrock. If you drill, you reach 1,000 feet, you'll hit the bedrock. And a cone of depression is being created because we are withdrawing water all the time. So this cone of depression has a depth of about 170 feet or so, which is contaminated. So Vasa has to drill up to about 700 feet. At the same time, if we look around, let's say in Raiwind area, we hit water when we drill about 20-30 feet. So the cone of depression is there, and a strip of saline water starts from Kasur area, goes up to Okara. So with gravity, that saline water is bound to come to Lahore maybe after 20 years or 30 years. So, and there was somebody saying that when disaster hits us, then we wake up. So if it has to come to Lahore, the saline water, the brackish water, if it will reach maybe in about 20, 30 years. So why not to act today? And what is the, remedy? We have to, recharge the Lahore's aquifer. So for that, the main source which was recharging the Lahore aquifer was actually River Ravi. So we don't have floods in that. So there was a proposal that a small shallow dam should be built across the dam. So there should be water in it throughout the year, and there'll be seepages. Another thing which I want to point out regarding the recharging wells. I have seen recharging wells in which water from a ground is just rushing into the well without any treatment. That is contaminated water. You have to provide sedimentation tanks first and then filters so that it gets filtered. It becomes equal to quality of a potable water, and then it should go down into the aquifer. Pakistan's aquifer of the plains, the aquifer of the plains is all, it's a continuous one system. If contaminated water goes into the aquifer, it will slowly spread into miles and hundreds of miles. So that is exceptionally important. Just this observation from me.
Just to increase or just to maintain the groundwater table, उसमें दो theory of thoughts हैं या school of thoughts दो हैं. एक school of thought तो ये है कि आप shallow aquifer को directly hit करें, उसको recharge करना शुरू कर दें. But there are high chances of contamination in that case, right? दूसरा school of thought उसमें ये कहता है कि say for instance अगर water table 100 feet के ऊपर है, तो आप जो रिचार्ज कर रहे हैं लुकिंग एट द जियोलॉजी और लिथोलॉजी, आप उसको 85 या 90 फीट के ऊपर जाके उसको स्टॉप कर दें और दरमियान में आप स्क्रीन्स डाल दें सो दैट द वाटर इंस्टेड ऑफ गोइंग डायरेक्टली हिट टू द ग्राउंड वाटर टेबल, वो साइडों से होके जाए तो एक ऑटोमेटिकली फिल्टर हो जाता है. हाँ, वेडोज जोन.
But at the same time, the layers of sand and clay and all that under Lahore, they are, the lenses are broken. So one way or the other, it has to go down.
Yes, exactly. I agree.
So eventually to jayega. It may take some years. It will go down.
Yeah, I agree. So with this, thank you very much to all the panelists for sparing their time and having a discussion, and also thankful to all the participants for being with us. और आप लोगों ने हमें बर्दाश्त किया वो ड्यूरिंग द डिस्कशन. मुझे बार बार ना फाइज़ा की तरफ से एक मैसेज आ रहा है कि आपने टी का रिमाइंडर अभी तक नहीं दिया. सो टी इज़ रेडी आउटसाइड द हॉल, सो वी विल गो टू टी और फर्दर क्वेश्चन आंसर और हैविंग अ नेटवर्क अपॉर्चुनिटी फॉर अस. सो लेट्स हैव अ टी. थैंक यू वेरी मच जी.